all of us in the band, like we're all pretty mellow I think people think that some of these backstages are not even that lavish, so this is it, like.
Yeah, so this podcast is all about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new record you have coming out on Friday as well.
Cool. Sweet. Sounds great.
Awesome. I know the band formed in Isla Vista in Santa Barbara, but are you originally from there? Did you just go there for college?
No, I'm actually from San Francisco originally, and I grew up listening to Live 105. So that's but my family, a lot of them are from Santa Barbara, and so I knew I wanted to go to college down in Santa Barbara after I was done with high school in San Francisco.
Cool. Did you grow up actually in the city?
Yeah, I grew up in the Sunset, the inner Sunset.
Wow, that's cool. You don't meet too many people that actually were raised in the city of San Francisco. Usually like East Bay or so that's cool. Well, tell me about that. I mean, growing up in a city must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. In San Francisco, you're exposed to so many different cultures, and I really valued that growing up, and valued all the different music and dance that my parents would take me to witness. And I think it really opened up the door to world music and dance, which I think has a effect on my music. So pretty cool.
Rad. How did you get to music?
Well, at a young age, we had a piano in the house, and I would always just go to it. And my mom noticed that, and she put us both through piano lessons. And I don't know, I always just was humming music in my head and playing music, and started with piano, went to guitar, and just I don't know what I'd be doing if I wasn't doing music. It's always been like my passion and what I've been into. So I feel pretty lucky I get to write and perform for a living.
That's rad. When did you start writing songs?
Not until around like 18 or 19 when I got to college. Yeah. I always just thought of myself as an instrumentalist, like guitar player, piano player. I was too scared to sing. It's like, too self-conscious. And and I don't know, something happened and started singing, and just kind of still learning how to be a singer.
Sure. I don't know about that, but been pretty successful with it for a number of years. But did you play in bands or anything when you were growing up in San Francisco?
No, not until I got to college and here in Santa Barbara. So I've had no band experience. I was just maybe like a school jazz band or something like that, but that's about it.
Okay, cool. And you went to school obviously in Santa Barbara, and when did the band start? Like, how did that start? You're just friends with the other guys? I know you grew up in Isla Vista, which is a thing in itself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when I got to Santa Barbara City College, I took the songwriting class.
Okay.
And that's what, man, that class actually really changed my life, because I met a lot of people in that class that wanted to play music. I had little side acoustic projects with different members of that class. And then I met the other guys in Rebelution through music classes at City College. And we got together, and we were a cover band at first, and we were all living in Isla Vista at the time. And, I was able to really focus on music through school at City College, and then eventually at UCSB. But I was able to really get the performing down with the band, playing on Fridays and Saturdays in Isla Vista, and the whole party scene. I had this great built-in crowd in Isla Vista, so it was great for Rebelution getting started. We had a ton of people to play in front of, people just walking up the block, and if they liked what they heard, then they stuck around. And if we'd announce the show the next weekend and just kept on playing. That's kind of been the story of this band.
Sure. Well, I will say congratulations on even finishing UC Santa Barbara, because I know a lot of people get wrapped up in that Isla Vista party scene, and they're like, okay, I'm done.
Right. Yeah, we all did. All four of us in the band, we all finished. I was the last one to finish, and then
that's so cool.
As soon as I was done, we hit the road and traveled across the country and just played show after show.
That's amazing. What was the cover band? I mean, you said it was Rebelution, but what were you guys playing? A lot of reggae songs or just a
Yeah,
plethora
we were
of?
playing a lot of like old, roots classics, but also like some new stuff too. Any song we liked, it might have been a song that wasn't even well known. We would just try to learn it, cover it, and play. And it was super fun. We still remember some of those songs we covered to this day. Like when we're in sound check, sometimes we'll bring those songs back and just have fun with it.
That's rad. That's rad. When did
Yeah.
you start, like, once that started kind of gaining a following, when did you start like writing? When were you like, let's turn this into an original band and with original songs?
Well, at the time, it felt like it was growing really fast, just as a cover band. But I think when you play a show for like 10 people and then there's 20 people and then 30 people, you're like, oh man, this is happening, guys, and we just loved what we were doing so much that we kept on going. We realized we had the capability of writing our own music. And I think because I saw the crowd getting bigger, it just encouraged me more to write music. And I became more comfortable singing. And when I say, still working on singing, it's true in a certain sense because, I came from not wanting to sing at all and being self-conscious about it to getting more comfortable. And I think throughout the years, I've just been more and more comfortable with my voice and performing. And I feel like I could always get better kind of thing. So, but yeah, man, it's fun. It's fun to see the progression of the band and what we might be like, 20 years from now.
Sure. I mean, with that first record, you guys really, did very, very well, especially with something that was self-produced and self-put out. I mean, to get on the radio and like the biggest alternative stations in, the country, at least. I mean, between K-Rock and 91X and Live 105 in San Francisco, like how do you even break into those stations as a local, not a local band, but like a self-released band, not having some record pusher coming in and trying
Right.
to pitch the albums to the PDs and all that?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with just how big our fan base was. It grew pretty quickly. It always felt like a slow and steady progression, but I think we had a lot of fans that were calling in. And I think the radio stations like Live 105 were like, oh, whoa, who are these guys? And why are there so many people calling and requesting this? And I remember it made it on like a top 5 countdown. We didn't expect that. We weren't like going for radio or anything like that. But I remember with Courage to Grow, iTunes named it like the best reggae album of the year back in 2007, I believe. And at that point, that was the first year iTunes gave out like, awards. So we had no idea that was even a thing. And I think that was the first year they started doing that. But that also helped. It helped get us some recognition and kind of put us on the map. But, there was never like any overnight like success.
Mm-hmm.
I think the radio helped just kind of expand it just a little bit more. And over time, people seeing our live performances and spreading the word to their friends, it just kept on growing slowly but surely.
When did you guys start like touring? Was it right after that record came out that you started touring?
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe like a year after, because I think I was still in school. Yeah, I was still in school when that album came out. So, or just finishing up school. So a year later, we started touring. We opened up for a band called the Expendables from Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah, it was great because they really showed us the ropes, and it was a small club tour, but we got to know like the different venues around the country and kind of the difference in crowds from the West Coast, the East Coast, and Midwest. And it was great. There's great camaraderie, and still to this day, those guys are some of our best friends.
When you toured like the first time, did you see, talking about Midwest, the East Coast to, the West Coast, obviously the Southern California area is just massive for reggae music, and like with bands like Pepper, it's like stupid. And like you have all these bands from Southern California. Was it different seeing crowds in like the Midwest and East Coast? Like was reggae like as big in those towns, or was it interesting playing some of those Midwest cities?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we we went places where I was shocked that people were kind of down with reggae and reggae rock and kind of this hybrid, reggae influenced, inspired scene going on. I think bands like Sublime were able to get that kind of reggae-ish vibe going around the country. I mean, they had radio success after Bradley died, and
sure,
I think Slightly Stupid going to a lot of the places really opened the door for bands like Rebelution. And yeah, I mean, when we started touring, there was kind of this movement going on. It was us and the Expendables and Iration, another band from Santa Barbara. And
yeah,
we were all, but I think the difference is that Rebelution, Iration, Tribal Seeds, and a lot of us were playing like more root style reggae with like traditional organs and drum and bass backbeats and stuff like that. And I think Sublime was more along that like ska punk rock, and they just had their own sound. And so I think the sound that we were influenced by sort of was a movement amongst not just Rebelution, but several other bands, both on the West Coast and East Coast. Like Soja, SOJA is another band from the East Coast that was doing it as well. They were definitely influenced by slow tempo roots reggae. And so it was this incredible scene that was evolving. But yeah, I mean, going around the country, it's just incredible, like traveling, so far and hearing people sing the music. I think that first tour with the Expendables, just hearing people sing our music in like Texas. I mean, it was crazy. We had no idea how they heard the music. The best way people heard our music back then was through like Napster and LimeWire, and then MySpace was a big thing. It allowed bands to upload their music, and it was the sort of the birth of like streaming. And that really helped because people could hear our music. It opened the door to independent bands being able to showcase their music.
And with that, the next record you guys put out was Bright Side of Life. And when that album came out, you had a record label at that point. Was that due to, I mean, you had major success as an independent band with no real backing aside from yourself. Like, was it hard to kind of like follow that up, or like, was that a question in your mind? Like, okay, how are we going to do this again? Like, is this going to be a thing?
Yeah, well, on the first album, we actually had another singer that sang a few songs or 4 or 5 songs. And he left the band just right after Courage to Grow was released. And, at the time I was like a little nervous. I didn't want to be the only singer in the band. And, I got a lot of encouragement from the other guys, and they, said like, Eric, you got this. And I think that challenge was the best thing for me because I really sort of came into my own, gained the confidence to, be the front man and the primary songwriter for the band. But, having a label behind the later releases after Courage to Grow, it helped in just like marketing the album and getting it to places that we wouldn't know how to market the album, different outlets. But we collaborated with, independent labels that were, pretty small compared to some of the bigger releases that were coming out at the time. And even to this day, we're with a company called Easy Star Records. And, I still consider them to be an independent label, sort of like a mom and pop kind of label, which is great. We love collaborating with those guys.
And well, with Bright Side of Life too, that's when was that the first time you got to play some of these festivals? I mean, like Bonnaroo and Lollapalooza and some of those bigger festivals. That the first time you had the experience to do those?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a trip because I think a lot of the festivals didn't have, our kind of music on them. So I think the festivals were excited because they saw a new demographic come into, these big festivals. And we were excited to kind of showcase what the scene is all about, what Rebelution music's all about, where influence comes from. And, we're a band that can mix it up. We definitely have reggae as a huge part to our sound. It's a big part to the foundation of our sound, but we like to mix it up. And I think that's why we can appeal to big audiences that, you know, don't necessarily listen to reggae music.
Mm-hmm. Sure, sure. And so, yeah, so you're able to play these big stages, and then the next record you guys put out after that was called Peace of Mind. What would you say like the highlight from that album was?
I think that was the first album we tried some different stuff. We realized, you know, the first couple of albums were pretty roots reggae oriented, and Peace of Mind, we incorporated some breakbeat instrumentals, some slower stuff, some more rock stuff, songs that are just not reggae at all. And that was also the first album we brought in a couple different producers, more like beat makers that, you know, submitted something, and we you know, we used like electronic drum kits for that. We really mixed it up on that album. And one thing that made the album special was that it was a triple release. We released a dub version of the album and an acoustic version of the album. And at that point, we hadn't really put out any acoustic material. And that was something that I really enjoyed doing because I actually feel more comfortable on an acoustic guitar than electric. So it showcased a different sound to Rebelution. It showcased that we can go with different genres, that we're not afraid to, and that we feel comfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm. And what about with Count Me In?
Yeah, Count Me In, similar in that we liked mixing it up. You know, we all listen to reggae music to a certain extent, but we listen to a lot of other music too. And we realized that we wanted to try something different with every album. Mm-hmm. So Count Me In was great. We got to collaborate with one of my favorite artists on that album. His name is Don Carlos. He's the guy that got me into reggae music. And
oh, really?
Yeah. So the song Roots Reggae Music, we have him on, and it was cool because we wrote this song that was a homage to roots reggae music. And then we got the guy that got me into roots reggae music. So it was a really, really cool experience. And also recording that album with Errol Brown, was Bob Marley's sound engineer, and recorded just pretty much every classic reggae album you can think of in the 70s and 80s, he recorded. So being in the studio with those two guys was a pretty amazing experience for me personally. Just, you know, seeing them respect Rebelution and then right back at them. Just that good energy inside the studio.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Like what was it like working with him? I mean, being
it was great.
A fan, I mean, that must have been,
yeah.
Were you nervous at all or?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember I had Errol Brown in my front seat, and I like literally picked up Don Carlos at the airport in Burbank, and we went straight to the studio, and I was like, just trying to keep the car steady. You know what I mean? But yeah, you know, going from being a fan of Don Carlos to, you know, considering him a friend now, and him just supporting us through our journey, it's pretty cool. It's very cool to get that recognition from one of your favorite artists. Definitely a great guy, and definitely plan on collaborating with him again because yeah, he's awesome.
That must have been, like pretty validating to have that guy, you know, performing with you and writing with you, to be such a big fan.
I think validating is the right word that I was looking for. So yeah.
That's awesome. I know when I came back to work at 91X, I was doing this Saturday morning show called Wake and Break, where it was all reggae music for like 4 hours on Saturday mornings. And then when you put out Falling to Peace or Falling into Place, that was when we were playing a bunch of songs from that record. Yeah. Did you see like what would be the next step for you guys as far as a band when you put out that album?
Yeah, that was different in that we actually worked with a producer for most of it. His name was Super Dupes. Does a lot of dance hall and reggae, and it was a really great experience. He produced that album differently than the other albums, and that's why I think I like it. You know, we always want to try something different with our albums. It's EQ'd differently, it's mixed differently, it's chopped up differently, and you know, I'd never like doubled my vocals on a track, and he had me do that. He never had me, like, I never stacked my vocals on previous albums. So there were different techniques that we learned through Super Dupes. And it was great just collaborating with him. Again, another album that, you know, we weren't afraid to try something different, not just, you know, reggae music, you know, throw in some of the alternative and pop, and even like, you know, some jazz, you know, in there a little bit. So it was definitely really fun.
That's cool. And the album that came out, the most recent besides the record that's coming out on Friday. Tell me about that one. Before the record that you probably put out and toured right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that? Tell me about
Yeah,
Free
that was
Reign.
called, so that was Free Reign. And I think after working with a producer like Super Dupes on Falling Into Place, we really missed like producing things ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we love the way Falling Into Place came out, but it's just really fun for us to get in the studio and produce ourselves. So we sort of, we recorded it ourselves, you know, really, all four of us were in there. We were very hands-on with, you know, different effects and different instruments used. And that was really, really fun. So again, and you know, I think we wanted to do something different from the previous album that we put out. Yeah.
Was there a reason that you went back to kind of your roots with doing self-recording, so kind of putting out producing the album?
Yeah, I think it's just mixing it up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, you know, mixing it up from the previous album, trying something different.
That's cool. And I mean, where were you guys at when this whole like pandemic came crashing down? Like, were you working on Into the Moment, or tell me where you're at?
We didn't realize that the pandemic was gonna last this long, or that it was even gonna be a thing. And so, you know, usually we write music from the road during sound checks or on the bus, or we exchange ideas in person. And that just wasn't possible with the pandemic. And I think once things started locking down and people were quarantining, that's when I realized, oh, well, I better get to work at home. And so you know, I personally went on this great streak of writing music in maybe a 2 or 3 month span. And, you know, we're lucky in this day, you can record digitally and send files back and forth. And, you know, we were used to getting in the studio and tracking everything live, but you know, I definitely embraced the challenge and really enjoyed the process of just getting in the mood here at home, recording and sending things to our touring guitar player, Kyle Ahern, who has a lot of recent production skills. And so he really was a huge part to the new album. He was able to kind of polish everything. And, you know, he's the youngest member of our band, but he actually grew up listening to Rebelution. And so he knows our sound. Yeah, it's really cool. His story is great because he won a contest. We do this Jam with the Band contest every year during the summer tour. And he sent in a cover of Rebelution. And, you know, I picked him because he like plays all the instruments and did a great job. And then years later, he contacted me and said, hey, if you ever need another guitar player, you know, I'm your guy. And I said, you know what? Like, we are looking for another guitar player, and, you know, you should come try out for the band. And of course, he like knew every Rebelution song better than I could play them. And, so it's a really cool story. Yeah, he won this contest, and then now he's like a full-time member.
That's awesome.
And it's only recently that he really started working on his production skills. So, you know, because he knew the Rebelution sound so well, we were able to kind of send everything his way, and then he sort of produced a lot of the music. So it was really, really nice. And then there were several tracks for the album that the other guys in the band led the charge on. They were the quarterbacks, they were the producers, and they were in contact with Kyle saying what they wanted. So this album was way different than previous albums for many reasons, but that was one cool experience, that each member got to be a producer of like a certain track.
That's awesome. So tell me about the Jam with the Band. Does somebody win and then they get to jump on stage with you guys? Do they get to do a tour with you guys? Like what's
Yeah, they basically come backstage before the show and we just jam like several songs. Yeah, just like a half an hour jam session in our backstage dressing room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I've done it maybe I don't know, yeah, a handful of times. It's a great experience for both them and for me, because I love seeing their reaction when they're, you know, there with the band and jamming out, and some of them are just so talented, you know, and Kyle is a great example of that. Just a really talented guy that comes from a more alternative, progressive rock, metal, you know, guy can shred. And that's not really my style. And so when we get together, we really can do cool stuff. Two different styles of guitar playing that mesh well together.
Have you ever had an experience with, like, I'm sure there's got to be some people that win that contest and go backstage and they like almost freeze, like,
yeah,
like,
for sure. Yeah, that's what I love. I love seeing that because, you know, all of us in the band, like we're all pretty mellow and you know, I think people think that some of these backstages are not even that lavish, you know. So this is it. Like, where's, like, you know, the tour bus and stuff. But yeah, and it's really fun. I love doing it. We'll probably do it again for this summer tour.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to talk to you about how you guys you get to finally play. That's huge. But so were you guys on the road or anything when you started seeing stuff shut down, or were you kind of on a break at that point?
Yeah, we were on a break. And I think we kind of needed a break, you know, after doing this 17 years, but we didn't need this long of a break, and nobody expected it to happen. And now that we have this new album out and things are kind of coming back, it just makes this upcoming summer tour that much more exciting. We are, like, I think the fans are pumped up and we're pumped up. I was a little nervous. I thought people wouldn't want to come to live music after this pandemic scare. But I was wrong. Everybody's really excited to get back out there, and our ticket counts are just amazing. They're going to be packed shows, so it's all very exciting.
Huge. I mean, the support you have on the record, I mean, on the tour too. I mean, the Greens, Steel Pulse. I mean, it's some iconic names in reggae with those shows.
Yeah, and three very different acts. You know, Steel Pulse being, you know, a legendary act from the UK. So they have their own kind of style. The Green being from Hawaii, they have their own unique style. And then Keznamdi is a up and coming, you know, roots and dancehall artist from Jamaica. So it's going to be a cool evening, you know, wherever these shows are at.
Yeah, that's so cool. Oh, it's funny that not funny, but it's interesting that you bring up that you weren't sure if people were going to want to come because of the scare and everything that's been going on over the course of the past year and a half. But I think people are so ready to just get out and play. I think people are going to take shows less for granted now, instead of being like, oh, you know, Rebelution will probably come back in 3 or 4 months. We'll see them again. It's like, no, it's Thursday. I don't care if to work tomorrow. Like, people are going to be out there, I think, and at least for a while, I'd hope. Like, I think the shows are going to be less taken for granted now that we haven't seen one in, you know, 18 months or whatever it's been.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And you know, likewise for me, like, I really miss performing. I miss that expression on stage, and definitely not going to take it for granted. I think that's why, another reason why we named this album In the Moment. It's just to embrace every moment for what it's worth. And, you know, gosh, if this isn't a reminder for that, then I don't know what is. So.
Yeah. For sure. How quickly into the whole lockdown did you start writing songs for this new record?
Yeah, pretty quickly. I was living out in Guam,
wow,
where my wife is from, and so I started writing a lot of stuff there at the beginning of the pandemic. Then we moved to Santa Barbara, where I am now, like sort of at the height of the pandemic, or maybe I shouldn't say that, but maybe summer last year, actually. And then once I got here, I set up all my equipment. I just went on this like 3-4 month just creative spurt. And that's where I really got the most done. And it's crazy when an album comes out, it takes so long like, I'm ready for the next album now. I'm ready to write for the next one. And
Sure.
so it's there's a little bit of a delay when you write and record to when it actually comes out. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. Well, you said that like every album you try to do something different. And obviously, this is probably the most different of records, just due to the situation. But you were able to get some guest appearances on the album as well. How did that go about? Was it over like a Zooms like this, or like how are you able to bring on some of these people?
Actually, I don't think I talked to any of them individually. It was all sent through email. We had these 4 songs with the guests, with the guest verses open, and thankfully, the 3 guys from Jamaica were into the idea. And again, it's that whole validation. I mean, having people from Jamaica, a place that's really influenced the Rebelution sound, having them want to collaborate with us is really, really big for us, especially, Rebelution gets tied in with the reggae category. And even though we mix it up and we kind of have our own sound, it's important for us to showcase reggae music from Jamaica, because I want that culture to be recognized. And the fact that they want to collaborate with us is very, very meaningful and such an honor. And it's great because we get to, people get to hear the Rebelution sound, and then also, Jamaican reggae. So that's really cool. And then, yeah, Duran Jones is a R&B, soul, funk artist. And we toured with them, Duran Jones and the Indications, a couple years ago. And we always talked about getting on a track together. And I think it was cool for Duran because he was on his first reggae track. And for us to get a different sounding voice on a song is really cool. So
very cool. Do you have any, was it for a tour that, for people that haven't seen a show in a year and a half, like, did you prepare anything different for this tour? Or is it just going to be like business as usual? Like, were you trying to do anything different at all as far as like, more bells and whistles or?
Yeah, we're definitely preparing. I think we're so excited to tour that we've been really back and forth trying to prepare a really nice set and different ideas. And we just want to be as tight as possible after not playing with each other for a year and a half. I know as soon as we get back together in the practice room, it'll all come back pretty quickly.
Sure.
But we've been sending ideas back and forth so that we are prepped and ready to go. Because usually in a tour, I hate to say this, but halfway through the tour is when everybody's really hitting their stride. All our chops are up and we're clicking on all levels. But with all this downtime, we're preparing like we never have for a summer tour. So we definitely have some good stuff planned.
Amazing. And you haven't played as a group yet since the pandemic hit?
We haven't. No, yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah,
that's gonna be probably a pretty emotional moment. Not to mention the shows, but like just getting us in the same room together.
Yeah, completely. We got together to film a music video for the new album just about a month and a half ago. And that was the first time we'd seen each other in a year and a half.
Wow.
But it was, it was the kind of thing where we all did COVID testing. Most of us were vaccinated at the time, but it was very, very strict. And I'm glad we did it that way so that it was safe. But yeah, that was the first time we had seen each other in a long time. It was crazy. But yeah, it was like no time had passed too. Once you're in a room together for 10 minutes, like, oh yeah, I feel like we just saw each other yesterday. I mean, that's how long we've been together. So
sure.
Yeah.
And then the first show of the tour is in LA or Hollywood Palladium?
The first show I think is in Fresno. And then we go to 2 shows in Costa Mesa for the Orange County Fair. And then the Palladium. Okay. So yeah, the first 4 shows are all California shows. It's like jumping right into it.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Hometown almost shows for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know what the regulations will be, but looking forward to seeing some familiar faces.
Yeah. I don't know either. Stuff's happening and opening up. It's like they're throwing big festivals. You have like Outside Lands that's going to happen, and You know, I'm curious to see how they're going to kind of unfold some of these shows, if they're going to be full capacity. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and
I
see.
think everybody's just expecting to be, you know, full capacity. And I know certainly we're selling our shows at full capacity. So,
I love
you know,
that.
all good signs. Yeah, all good signs.
Very cool. And thank you so much for doing this, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for covering this. I appreciate it as well.
I do have one more question before I let you go. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Yeah, just to try to showcase your unique style. You know, for us, yeah, reggae is a big part to our sound. But I think one thing that sets Rebelution apart is when you hear us play, when you hear the vocals, when you hear the drums, all together, you know, it sounds like Rebelution. I think it's important to have your own sound, not try to hit a certain demographic, not try to reach a certain sound. Play whatever sounds good to you, that feels good, that, you know, demonstrates who you are as a person through the arts. And if it works, then great. If not, at least you were honest with your music. And I think in the end, that will feel the best to that artist, to just showcase who you are.